Have you ever noticed how the kindest people often look the most tired? The ones who always show up, who always smile, who always say yes. On the surface, it seems beautiful, until you look closer and see the exhaustion in their eyes. Kindness is praised like a virtue, taught like a rule. Be kind, be helpful, be loving. But kindness isn't only gentle. It has a shadow. And when we ignore that shadow, kindness can turn inward and hurt the person who gives it. It starts early. A child learns that being agreeable wins love. Smile, obey, make them comfortable, and you get praise, a hug, attention. Over time, the child grows into an adult who believes their value comes from giving. That kindness becomes survival. Saying yes becomes automatic. Saying no feels dangerous. When kindness is driven by fear, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as selfish, it's no longer pure. It becomes a mask. Masks suffocate. Underneath, anger and hurt build. The kind person helps a friend move while their own apartment is a mess. They lend money they can't afford. They say, "I'm fine," when they are not. Outside, everything looks okay. Inside, things break down. There's a name for what follows: compassion fatigue. People who pour themselves out without refilling run dry. Healthcare workers, teachers, parents, and everyday neighbors, friends, partners, all can burn out. Research shows that perpetual people-pleasing raises anxiety and depression when boundaries are missing. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-erasure. It's like watering every plant in the garden except your own roots. The gardener collapses and the garden withers. Worse, constant kindness trains people to expect it. Your availability becomes assumed. Your needs become negotiable. Slowly, you become invisible. The kinder you are, the more others take your kindness for granted, and the lonelier you feel. This isn't a condemnation of kindness. True kindness, the kind that heals, flows from abundance. It comes from a place of strength. The kind that bleeds out of fear corrodes. The goal is not to stop being kind. It's to learn to be kind without losing yourself. How do you start? First, pause. When asked, take a breath. Check in. Do I have the capacity? Do I want to? A brief pause keeps you from defaulting into old survival habits. Second, practice gentle no's. I care about you, but I can't right now. That is both honest and loving. Third, reclaim your worth. Your value does not depend on your usefulness. You are worthy whether you give or rest. Finally, feed yourself. Tend to your energy like it's sacred. Rest, say no, pursue what fills you. When you give from abundance, your kindness becomes a gift, not a debt. This is the first step away from the mask. Remove it slowly. Let your kindness come from a place that includes you. Because being kind shouldn't mean disappearing. It should mean being real. Many kind people mistake self-erasure for love, but love built on absence is fragile. Think about it. The world doesn't need more people who are exhausted from giving. It needs people who are alive, honest, and grounded. People whose kindness has roots, not cracks. Psychologists call this balance emotional integrity. It's when your heart and your boundaries exist side by side. When you can say, "I care about you," and still mean, "I care about me too." That's not selfish. That's sustainable. Because without self-kindness, every other form of kindness eventually falls apart. The truth is, boundaries are love in disguise. They say, "I value this relationship enough to protect it from resentment." Every time you draw a line, you protect both sides. But yes, it's hard, especially when people have gotten used to your endless yes. They might push back, make you feel guilty, say you've changed. But remember this, you're not changing, you're returning. You're coming back to yourself. And that self you're returning to, it's tired of pretending. It's tired of pleasing. It's ready to breathe again, to rest without apology, to speak truth even if your voice shakes. That's the moment kindness transforms from performance into presence. There's even science behind it. Studies from Berkeley and Harvard show that kindness increases happiness only when it's authentic. When it's given out of guilt or fear, it backfires, raising stress and lowering joy. Real kindness isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. When your giving matches your truth, it energizes you instead of draining you. But here's the deeper part. Suppressed emotions don't vanish. They ferment. Every yes that means no turns into quiet resentment. Every fake smile piles into exhaustion. Eventually, it explodes, maybe through anger, burnout, or sudden withdrawal. That's the monster within kind people. not their rage, but their silence. The pain of 1,000 unspoken no's. We tell ourselves that kindness keeps peace. But peace built on self-abandonment is temporary. It's the calm before collapse. Because true peace can't exist where truth is buried. So ask yourself, is your kindness peaceful or performative? Does it fill you, or does it empty you? If your answer leans toward emptiness, that's your signal. Not to stop caring, but to start caring for yourself, too. To practice the kind of compassion that includes your own heart. Because the world doesn't benefit from your exhaustion. It benefits from your wholeness. And maybe that's the secret we've missed all along. Kindness isn't about losing yourself for others. It's about finding yourself while loving them. So when you feel that familiar pull, the urge to please, to fix, to overextend, pause. Ask yourself, is this kindness, or is it fear wearing kindness as a mask? Most of the time, it's the latter. Fear of disappointing, fear of being disliked, fear of being alone. But those fears don't go away by obeying them. They only shrink when you stop feeding them. You stop feeding them by saying no. Not angrily, not defensively, simply. A soft no that protects your energy is far kinder than a forced yes that hides your resentment. Remember this. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. You decide when to open them and to whom. When you start living like that, something shifts. You stop needing everyone to understand you. You stop needing their validation. Because peace stops depending on their reactions and starts growing from your own clarity. That's emotional freedom, when your kindness becomes a choice, not a compulsion. When love becomes intentional, not survival. The irony is, when you finally choose yourself, the love you give others becomes deeper, cleaner, because it's no longer contaminated by guilt or fatigue. You start giving from fullness, not emptiness. You start helping without losing yourself in the process. And that's the version of you the world actually needs. Not the one who never says no, but the one who knows when yes is sacred. The one who understands that rest is not laziness, that silence is not withdrawal, that protecting your peace is not selfishness. It's strategy. A necessary strategy for a world that will gladly consume your light if you let it. The poet Nayira Wahid once wrote, "You do not have to be a fire for every mountain." And she was right. Some mountains are meant to stand untouched, reminding you that not every battle is yours. You can still be kind without being consumed, still loving without being drained, still generous without being empty. That's the art of sustainable kindness. And here's the paradox. The more you honor your limits, the more limitless your compassion becomes. Because when your energy is cared for, your heart expands instead of collapses. You stop breaking into pieces to prove your goodness. You realize that the people worth keeping in your life will never require your exhaustion as proof of love. They will celebrate your boundaries because they have their own. They will not demand more than you can give. They will not punish your no. And when you meet people like that, hold on to them. Because they are proof that healthy love exists. Proof that kindness can coexist with strength, that empathy can live alongside honesty, and that peace doesn't require pretending. And maybe that's the whole lesson life keeps trying to teach us. That you can't save everyone, but you can save your peace. That love doesn't have to mean sacrifice, and empathy doesn't have to mean exhaustion. You can still care deeply without carrying everything. You can still be kind without being consumed by other people's storms. True kindness is quiet power. It's not loud or desperate. It doesn't seek applause. It doesn't chase validation. It's the kind that says, "I will help you, but I will not harm myself to do it." It's rooted, not reckless. Grounded, not guilt-driven. The hardest part is accepting that some people will misread your peace as coldness. They'll think your silence means you've stopped caring. But silence, at its best, is clarity. It's the sound of someone protecting what's sacred. Don't explain your boundaries to people committed to misunderstanding them. The ones meant for you will feel your heart, even in your quiet. They'll know your distance is not rejection, it's restoration. Healing often looks like absence before it looks like balance. You pull back, recharge, rebuild. Then you return stronger, softer, but unshakable. It's the beauty of boundaries. They teach you how to stay open without losing yourself. You begin to realize that peace is not found in pleasing everyone. It's found in being at home within yourself. And that home doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be honest. To wake up one day and feel safe inside your own presence. That's the truest kindness you'll ever know. The world will keep spinning with its noise, demands, and chaos. But somewhere inside that storm, you'll stand still, calm, anchored in your truth. Because kindness without clarity leads to chaos. But kindness with clarity? That changes everything. It's not about becoming heartless. It's about becoming heartstrong. The kind of strong that can love without losing shape. Forgive without forgetting yourself. Give without breaking. That strength is rare, but it's the kind the world quietly admires. People may not always understand your calm, but they'll feel it. They'll sense something steady in you, a warmth that doesn't flicker just because someone else is cold. That's what real kindness is, the kind that endures because it's rooted in truth, not performance. And maybe that's where the story of the kind-hearted ends, not with exhaustion, but with evolution. A transformation from overgiver to balanced being, from people-pleaser to peacekeeper, from self-erasure to self-respect. Because the kindest thing you can ever do for others is to start by being kind to yourself. So start there, with yourself. With mornings that don't begin in panic, with choices that don't come from guilt, with the courage to say, I deserve the same patience I give to everyone else. Because you do. You've spent so long being the safe place for others that you've forgotten what safety feels like for you. Relearn it. Reclaim it. Let stillness become your new rebellion. The world glorifies chaos, being busy, being needed, being everywhere. But peace? Peace is revolutionary. It's the quiet refusal to trade your soul for acceptance. Every time you choose peace over pleasing, you rewrite the definition of kindness. You show others that empathy doesn't have to hurt, that you can be both soft and firm, gentle and unyielding, giving and grounded. That's the balance humanity is starving for. You don't need to shout your worth to be seen. The right people will recognize your energy by how it feels, steady, safe, sincere. And the wrong ones will simply fade away. That's not loss. That's alignment. The universe has a quiet way of protecting those who finally honor their own boundaries. The moment you stop chasing what drains you, you start attracting what sustains you. Love that feels easy. Friendships that feel mutual. Opportunities that don't demand your peace as payment. It's not magic. It's clarity. Because energy doesn't lie. When you stop betraying yourself, your entire world rearranges itself around that truth. You'll notice how things that once felt heavy begin to lose their power. The constant anxiety, the need to explain, the guilt after saying no, they start to fade. Slowly, but surely. What replaces them is space. Space to breathe, to think, to exist without performance. And in that space, you'll rediscover your essence. The version of you that existed before the world taught you that love must hurt. That version is still there, waiting to create from joy instead of obligation, to speak from truth instead of fear, to love without losing shape. You'll realize that self-love was never about arrogance. It was about remembrance. Remembering that your worth is not negotiable, that your kindness does not require approval, that your peace is proof of growth, not distance. And one day, maybe quietly, you'll notice you no longer crave the chaos you once called connection. You'll crave calm instead. You'll protect your peace like oxygen, not because you're selfish, but because you've finally learned how to breathe. And when that day comes, when calm becomes your new normal, you'll understand something profound. That peace was never a place you had to find. It was a state you had to remember. It was buried under years of noise, of saying yes when you meant no, of shrinking so others could shine. But now, that quiet voice inside you, the one you ignored for so long, becomes your guide. It tells you when to rest, when to speak, when to walk away. And you listen, because you finally trust yourself again. That's the real victory. Not control, not perfection, but trust. The kind that says, even when I'm uncertain, I still have my own back. From there, life begins to flow differently. Decisions feel lighter. Relationships feel cleaner. You stop performing and start existing. And in that existence, you find beauty. A kind of beauty that doesn't depend on how useful you are to others, but on how truthful you are with yourself. That's what healing really is, coming home to your truth after years of living in disguise. And when you live from that truth, you realize something wild. Your presence itself becomes medicine. Not because you're trying to fix anyone, but because you're real. Realness has power. It creates safety in rooms where everyone else is pretending. It reminds others that it's okay to stop performing too. That's how kindness evolves, not as sacrifice, but as authenticity. You become a mirror for others to see what peace could look like. Not perfect, not polished, just peaceful. A kind of peace that doesn't need to prove itself. And that peace spreads quietly. It influences without effort. You'll notice that people start speaking softer around you. They start breathing deeper. Because peace is contagious. It teaches without teaching. That's the paradox. By choosing yourself, you give others permission to do the same. And maybe that's the real service to humanity. Not martyrdom, not endless giving, but alignment. A world full of people who know themselves will always be kinder than a world full of people who only try to please. So let this be your new form of kindness, the one that begins with truth. Let your yes mean yes, your no mean no, and your love mean freedom, not obligation. Be gentle, but be grounded. Be kind, but be clear. And when you walk into a room, let your peace be louder than your presence. Because the kindest souls aren't the ones who give the most. They're the ones who remain whole while giving. They're the proof that you can love deeply without losing yourself in the process. And that's where life starts to feel light again. Not because it suddenly got easier, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours. You stopped confusing struggle for purpose. You stop mistaking chaos for connection. You start realizing that peace isn't boring, it's clarity. It's the space where real joy finally has room to breathe. The same people who once called you too quiet or too distant will start noticing something different. They'll sense your balance, your calm, your confidence. They won't always understand it, but they'll feel it. Because peace speaks louder than noise ever could. You become magnetic without trying. Your silence carries weight. Your absence becomes respected. That's the quiet reward of living aligned. You stop chasing, and life starts meeting you halfway. You begin to attract people who speak your language, calm, grounded, authentic. People who don't want to drain you, but build with you. People who understand that love isn't ownership, it's partnership. And in that space, you finally experience what healthy love feels like. Love that doesn't demand your exhaustion. Love that doesn't make you smaller. Love that lets you rest. It's rare, but it exists. And once you've tasted it, you'll never settle for the counterfeit kind again. The kind that praises your selflessness while quietly benefiting from your silence. You'll start seeing through it all. Every time someone says, "You've changed," you'll smile because you know they're really saying, "You've stopped making your life revolve around me." And that's progress. Growth isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just you, sitting quietly, choosing not to explain yourself, choosing peace over performance, choosing solitude over shallow company, choosing authenticity over approval. That's the evolution of kindness. You realize you were never meant to be everyone's healer. You were meant to heal yourself so deeply that your presence becomes healing by nature. And when you reach that point, life begins to move in rhythm with you. Things start aligning effortlessly, not because the world changed, but because you did. You stopped resisting your truth. You stopped trying to earn love you already deserved. You became the calm you were always searching for. That's the quiet revolution, when the kind-hearted finally reclaim their power, not through force, but through presence. And that presence, that quiet, grounded energy, is what the world needs most. Not more people pleasing, not more pretending, not more constant giving until there's nothing left. The world needs people who are kind and awake. People who can say no without guilt, who can love without losing themselves, who can give from fullness instead of fear. Because when you are full, your kindness becomes contagious in the best way. It doesn't burn you out. It lights others up. That's when your empathy becomes power, not punishment. And it starts small. The first time you say, "I can't take that on right now." The first time you rest without apologizing. The first time you let someone else solve their own problem. It feels awkward, maybe even selfish. But that's just the sound of old programming breaking. Every boundary you set is a message to your nervous system that says, "I'm safe now. I don't need to earn love anymore. I don't have to disappear to be accepted." That's not arrogance. That's healing. Healing is messy, quiet, and often misunderstood, but it's also sacred. Because you're teaching your mind and body that you matter, too. And when you finally believe that, everything changes. Your relationships shift. The way you talk to yourself softens. The way you walk through the world becomes lighter. You stop trying to prove your goodness because you've already accepted it. You realize that being a good person doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It means living with integrity, saying yes when you mean it, saying no when you must, and staying true when it's hardest. That's the kind of kindness that lasts. The kind that doesn't collapse under the weight of expectation. The kind that inspires others to do the same. Imagine a world where kindness isn't about self-sacrifice, but self-awareness. Where people give because they want to, not because they're afraid not to. That's a world built on truth, not guilt. A world where empathy is strength, not exhaustion. And that begins with you. Every small act of honesty, every gentle no, every moment of rest is a rebellion against a culture that profits from your depletion. You're not lazy for needing rest. You're not selfish for saying no. You're human, learning to treat yourself with the same compassion you've always given everyone else. And maybe that's the real secret, learning to turn your kindness inward. To look at yourself with the same soft eyes you offer the world. To speak gently to the parts of you that feel tired. To forgive yourself for the years you gave too much. For the times you stayed silent just to keep the peace. You did what you had to do to survive. But now, survival isn't the goal anymore. Peace is. Love is. Freedom is. And you can't reach any of those things while carrying the belief that you have to earn your right to exist. You were born worthy. You don't have to prove it by being endlessly available. You don't have to prove it by being the strong one. You don't have to prove it by never needing help. Worthiness is not something you achieve. It's something you remember. And once you remember, everything that felt impossible before starts to feel natural. Rest doesn't feel like guilt anymore. Saying no doesn't feel like a crime. Being honest doesn't feel dangerous. It feels like coming home. And when you finally come home to yourself, your kindness takes on a new shape. It's quieter, but stronger. Softer, but deeper. You start to realize that real kindness is not a performance. It's presence. It's the way you show up when no one's watching. The way you treat your own heart when it's breaking. The way you allow yourself to grow without apology. And that's where your power lives. In the simple act of being kind to yourself first. Because when you treat yourself with love, you naturally teach others how to treat you. You set the tone. You change the pattern. You break the cycle. You stop being the person who gives until they disappear and start being the person who gives because they overflow. That's the turning point, when your kindness becomes a source of light, not a source of pain. You stop rescuing everyone and start inspiring them to rescue themselves. You stop trying to carry people who were never meant to be your burden. You stop mistaking exhaustion for purpose. You start choosing peace not because you gave up, but because you finally understand your worth. You start realizing that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors that let the right people in. And through those doors, life begins to feel different. Calmer. Simpler. Not because the world changed, but because you finally did. You begin to recognize who truly values you. Not for what you give, but for who you are. These are the people who don't guilt-trip you for having limits, who don't make you prove your love by draining yourself. They meet you halfway. They understand that real connection isn't built on sacrifice, but on mutual respect. That's the kind of connection that lasts, the kind where you don't have to lose yourself just to belong. You realize that love without freedom isn't love, it's control. And you stop confusing loyalty with self-abandonment. You start to see how much beauty there is in balance. In giving without resentment, in helping without losing sleep, in caring without collapsing. It's the kind of peace that doesn't need to be explained. You don't have to justify it to anyone. You just live it, and people will feel it. They'll see the shift in your eyes, the calm in your voice, the quiet strength that can only come from knowing your worth. That's what healed kindness looks like. It's not loud or dramatic. It's not about proving how good you are. It's simply being whole. Because wholeness is what kindness was always meant to lead you toward. The version of you that gives freely, but never empties. The version of you that forgives, but doesn't forget yourself in the process. The version of you that understands. Kindness without self-respect isn't virtue. It's a slow disappearance. And you're done disappearing. You're done dimming your light just to make others comfortable. You're done apologizing for needing rest, for saying no, for being human. Because this time, your kindness includes you. This time, it's not a mask you wear to feel worthy. It's the truth you live because you already are. And that truth doesn't need validation. It doesn't need permission. It just needs consistency, a daily practice of remembering who you are beneath the noise. You. The one who can be kind and still strong, gentle and still grounded, loving and still whole. That's the balance the world desperately needs to see. Because when kindness finally includes you, it becomes unstoppable. It's no longer about trying to save the world. It's about becoming the kind of person who reminds the world that healing is possible. You start walking differently. There's ease in your steps. There's quiet in your heart. You don't rush to fill every silence or fix every problem. You listen more. You react less. You realize that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is not interfere. Let people learn their lessons, the same way you had to learn yours. Because real compassion isn't about rescuing. It's about respecting the process. It's about trusting that others have their own path, their own timing. You start to see how much peace there is in letting go. You don't chase closure anymore. You don't fight for spaces that no longer fit. You don't try to convince anyone of your worth. You've outgrown that version of love, the one that demanded your silence, your constant giving, your endless availability. You don't live there anymore. You've built something stronger, a foundation rooted in truth. You start living in a way that honors your energy. You say yes because you want to, not because you're scared to say no. You rest because you deserve it, not because you've earned it. You love because it expands you, not because it defines you. And that's the difference between living out of fear and living out of freedom. Freedom doesn't mean shutting people out. It means showing up without pretending. It means giving from a place of truth, not obligation. It means knowing that your softness doesn't make you weak, it makes you real. That's the paradox of kindness. It's strongest when it's balanced. It doesn't need to prove anything. It just exists. Quietly, powerfully, authentically. The kind of kindness that doesn't drain you, it sustains you. The kind that doesn't demand applause, it simply radiates. That's the energy that transforms rooms, that calms storms, that changes lives, starting with your own. And maybe that's the lesson life has been trying to teach you all along. That you can be both kind and firm, both gentle and unshakable. That compassion isn't about shrinking yourself to keep others comfortable, but expanding into your full truth. You don't have to harden your heart to protect it. You just have to honor it. That's the balance most people never learn, because the world often rewards self-sacrifice more than self-respect. But you're learning it now. You're seeing that saying no can be an act of love, that walking away can be a form of peace, that protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's sacred. When you stop betraying yourself for approval, you step into a kind of strength that doesn't need validation. You stop being afraid of disappointing people because you understand that your peace will always disappoint someone who benefits from your chaos. And that's okay. You're not here to be everything for everyone. You're here to live as fully as you can, as truthfully as you can. The world doesn't need perfect people, it needs real ones. People who are kind, but honest, compassionate, but clear, loving, but self-aware. Because when kindness comes from that place, it's transformative. It changes how we relate, how we lead, how we love. It's not about being nice, it's about being true. And truth, even when it's uncomfortable, is the highest form of kindness. It's the kind of love that liberates instead of controls. It's the kind of presence that heals without performing. And it all begins with a choice, to stop hiding behind the mask of endless giving and start showing up as yourself. Unfiltered, whole, human. Because that's where the real beauty of kindness lives, not in perfection, but in authenticity. The world has enough people pretending to be good. What it needs are people brave enough to be real. And when you live like that, your kindness becomes light, the kind that doesn't fade, doesn't drain, doesn't break. The kind that sustains. Because that kind of light doesn't just stay within you, it spreads. It touches the people around you, often without you even realizing it. Someone sees you say no without guilt, and suddenly they feel permission to do the same. Someone watches you rest without apologizing, and they start questioning why they never allow themselves to stop. That's how change happens, not through loud revolutions, but through quiet examples of people choosing truth over performance. You become a mirror that reflects what real kindness looks like, balanced, honest, and free. You remind others that love can exist without exhaustion, that generosity doesn't have to come with self-erasure. You start living in a rhythm that feels sustainable, peaceful, real. And it doesn't mean you never struggle again. It just means that now, when you do, you don't abandon yourself in the process. You hold your own hand through it. You speak gently to your tired mind. You remind yourself that you've come too far to go back to pretending. That's the new form of strength, not endurance without limits, but compassion with boundaries. And the world will try to pull you back. There will always be people who miss the version of you who made their life easier at the expense of your own. They might call you distant, selfish, changed, but you'll know better. You'll know that you didn't change, you returned. You came back to yourself. And anyone who truly loves you will adjust to that version of you. The one who doesn't overgive, who doesn't beg to be seen, who doesn't apologize for existing. You'll start to notice something beautiful. Your relationships will become lighter. They'll have space for honesty, for equality, for respect. The right people won't be intimidated by your boundaries. They'll be inspired by them. Because real love celebrates your wholeness, not your silence. It thrives in truth, not compliance. And that's what your heart was searching for all along. Connection that doesn't cost you yourself. And finally, you begin to see the full picture. Kindness is not about giving until there's nothing left. It's not about hiding your pain, ignoring your needs, or sacrificing yourself to prove worth. Real kindness begins with you, with your presence, your boundaries, your truth. When you honor yourself, everything else falls into alignment. You start to understand that every act of compassion, every gentle word, every patient moment is far more powerful when it comes from a place of fullness instead of fear. You don't give because you have to. You give because you can. You love because your heart overflows, not because it's empty and desperate for approval. And in that state, kindness becomes something sacred. It heals without collapsing. It touches without draining. It nurtures without demanding. That's the kind of energy that changes lives, quietly, consistently, irrevocably. You realize that exhaustion, resentment, and silent anger were never your enemies. They were messengers. They were signals telling you to stop giving from scarcity, to stop proving worth, to stop erasing yourself. And now, when you listen to those signals, you act differently. You pause. You rest. You protect your energy. You choose your yes and your no's with care, intention, and love. And in doing so, you create a life where kindness doesn't come at the cost of your health or joy. It's sustainable. It's real. It's alive. This is the transformation the world has been waiting for. Not more people bending themselves out of shape to appear good, but people standing whole, strong, and compassionate, showing others that it's possible to give fully while staying intact. And in this final realization, you understand the truest form of kindness. It is not endless giving. It is not disappearing so others can shine. It is not a performance for approval or love. True kindness is balance. It is generosity paired with boundaries. It is love paired with honesty. It is compassion that begins with yourself. When you embrace that truth, you no longer fear saying no. You no longer collapse under the weight of expectations. You no longer silence your own needs to make someone else comfortable. You honor your energy, your rest, your heart. And in honoring yourself, your kindness becomes unstoppable, not loud, not performative, not draining, but radiant. You give because it feels natural. You help because it is your choice. You love because you are full, not because you are desperate. And that kind of kindness transforms everything. It changes how you relate to the world. It changes the energy you carry into every room, every conversation, every relationship. It spreads quietly, deeply, irreversibly. People notice. People feel it. People remember it. And the most beautiful truth of all, you no longer need validation to be kind. You no longer need approval to be good. You are already enough. You were always enough. And now, your kindness can exist without cost, without exhaustion, without compromise. It becomes a gift, not because it's forced, not because it's expected, but because it flows naturally from your wholeness. You have faced the monster within, the self-neglect, the exhaustion, the fear of being too much, and you have transformed it. You have removed the mask and stepped fully into your truth. And the world, in return, finally sees you, fully alive, fully human, fully kind. That is the ultimate kindness. The kind that sustains, the kind that heals, the kind that keeps both you and the world alive. And now, as you move forward, remember this. To be truly kind, you must never abandon yourself. Your light, your peace, your boundaries, these are not selfish. They are sacred. And when you live from that place, Every act of kindness becomes pure, every gesture becomes real, and every connection becomes meaningful. You are whole, you are kind, and you are enough.